Now, this isn't to say that Obama completely missed the point of these conferences via Biden and doesn't have some actual solutions that need looking into. Let me read off Obama's 23 executive orders that he signed into law. Number 1. Issue a presidential memorandum to require federal agencies to make relevant data available to the federal background check system. This is a good solution. 2. Address unnecessary legal barriers, particularly related to the Health Insurance Portability and Accessibility Act, that may prevent states from making information available to the background check system. Again, another good idea. Improve incentives for states to share information for the background check system. No problems there. Direct the Attorney General to review categories of individuals prohibited from having a gun to make sure dangerous people are not slipping through the cracks. No argument there. Propose rulemaking to give law enforcement the ability to run a full background check on an individual before returning a seized gun. I think that this would help. Yes, absolutely. 6. Publish a letter from the ATF to the federal licensed gun dealers providing guidance on how to run background checks for private sellers. Absolutely. 7. Launch a national safe and responsible gun ownership campaign. Now see, again, I completely agree with this in this case, because this could push us, at least in terms of our ideas of responsible and well-maintained gun ownership, into the right direction, that being the direction of Switzerland or Sweden. I keep getting those two mixed up. Review safety standards for gun locks and gun safes. Consumer Product Safety Commission. I don't think that's an issue, but okay, couldn't hurt. Issue a presidential memorandum to require federal law enforcement to trace guns recovered in criminal investigations. Don't they already do that? I guess they do, but they're not required, and this would make it required, so I'm fine with it. Release a DOJ report analyzing information on lost and stolen guns and make it widely available to law enforcement. Nominate ATF director. Provide law enforcement, first responders, and school officials with proper training for active shooter situations. Again, no argument there. Maximize enforcement efforts to prevent gun violence and prosecute gun crime. Perfectly fine. Issue a presidential memorandum to direct the Center for Disease Control to research the cause and prevention of gun violence. Now, that I didn't necessarily have a problem with, but the fact that he's lumping video games into that memorandum bothers me, and it should bother you. 15. Direct the Attorney General to issue a report on the availability and most effective use of new gun safety technologies and challenge the private sector to develop innovative technologies. I don't see a reason to be upset with that. If we could make the guns safer but yet still able to fire in time to be able to hurt any bad guys who do pose a credible and immediate danger to you or your family, why would I have an honest problem with that? Number 16, clarify that the Affordable Care Act does not prohibit doctors asking their patients about guns in their homes. If you're talking about psychiatric doctors or people who work with the mind, fine. But why would a medical doctor need to know this? I'm serious, why? 17. Release a letter to healthcare providers clarifying that no federal law prohibits them from reporting threats of violence to law enforcement authorities. See, this would close those instances where people have issues with a shooter the day before a massacre happens, and the shooter is able to go home, fume, reload, or possibly load their guns, and then go the next day to do their work. So I don't, again, see a major issue about this. 18, provide incentives for schools to hire school resource officers, which is supposed to improve safety without making it into an armed guard situation. I don't see a major problem there. Develop model emergency response plans for schools, houses of worship, and institutes of higher education. Since there have been church shootings, I guess those parishioners just didn't believe hard enough, right? Number 20, release a letter to state health officials clarifying the scope of mental health services that Medicaid plans must cover. Absolutely. 21, finalize regulations clarifying essential health benefits and partial requirements with the ACA exchanges. I'm not sure what that's about, but whatever. 2, commit to finalizing mental health parity regulations. Absolutely. 23, launch a national dialogue led by Secretaries Sebelius and Duncan on mental health. Again, I have no problem with that. My problem, and the only problem I see with it, is this waste of money that Obama wants to throw millions, frickin' millions, to try to get the CDC to tell us what we should already know. I know what you're saying. Well, gee, Octavius, if you're so sure of the data that's been out now, if you're so sure of those studies, then there should be nothing to worry about. You're right. I'm just mad that the guy at the top, the commander-in-chief, is actually putting any weight behind this and is actually throwing millions with an M, millions of dollars to the CDC to basically create these research projects. And what if, just for the sake of argument, shall we, when you try to say, well, what harm could it do? What if they get the money to the people who absolutely detest or are afraid of violent video games and the violence that our society has perpetuated, and will do anything to bias the situation, which has happened in the past, not necessarily related to the gaming stuff, but it does happen in research, and makes, after all these millions of dollars, comes up with an unsubstantiated claim that gets taken seriously. And then suddenly the Grand Theft Autos are pulled from the market, all markets. All these games are then rounded up and they're shredded because obviously we can't do burning for obvious reasons. And then let's say that I'm right. Let's say that they take these games and nothing changes. Let's say after several generations, just to give it a fair shot, nothing changes. Granted, we're stepping in the right direction with a national talk about mental health, as long as it's a healthy talk. As long as it's not a, oh, we got to be afraid of a new boogeyman. You're not so scared of that terrorist boogeyman anymore? Well, how about a mentally unbalanced or on medication for unspecified reasons, guy down the street? Because remember, when we think of psychos, it's always men, right? Because women are incapable of becoming psycho killers. And I've already talked about how silly that is, and at some point I'm going to go into detail when I go into my sex negative talk that this country seriously needs to have as well. Actually, the world, but a lot of the world's a little more progressive than we are. A lot of this is good, but it's still a band-aid on a head wound. Society has to take a look at itself. It has to look at as many mirrors as possible, get perspective from outside of this country, as well as from some of the biggest and brightest of us in this country. We've got to listen with open ears and look with eyes unclouded. Otherwise, this is all for nothing, and this will solve nothing. And another massacre is only another matter of time.